Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plot Lines. I'm your host, Connor, and today we're going to follow up on our conversation yesterday. I talked with Kennedy Hall, Anthony Abate, Father Lovell was there, and Eric Sammons was there. But we're going to be talking a little bit more in detail, especially about Biden, and we're going to talk about even how the King of England fits into this conversation. England, Scotland, whatever, the Dominions as well. Or is it Commonwealth? I'm not great with titles. But today I have the co-founder of LifeSite News, John Henry Westen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Connor. Good to be with you.
It's really an honor to be talking to you, and I'm glad we're at the same conference today. So I'm just glad to be at this conference with you and have this opportunity.
Beautiful.
So we're talking about cowardice. We're talking about what makes a coward. And one of the things that sort of came out of that conversation yesterday was the villains. They sort of aren't cowards. They have no shame at this point. But people who want to do good tend to be more the cowards. So we were talking more about like Kennedy was saying that Trudeau's not a coward. What do you think about that? Do you think that's the case?
Well, in a lot of ways, it's true. In a lot of ways, the sons of darkness, if you will, they go out there and do their things. I mean, if you think about what abortion activists do, they are out there yelling and screaming. Sometimes they're out there without their clothes on, but they're out there threatening themselves with legal action because, when they protest, sometimes they protest violently, which incurs for them possible legal penalty. So in some ways, they're quite courageous, if you can call it that. And Trudeau, too, has stuck his neck out. Now, they do these things measured. They kind of look at polls and everything else. So in some ways, you can say he's not. But he is willing to speak his truth, which is not the truth. It's his truth. It is a false truth. It's not the truth. It's a lie. It's a demonic lie. But he pushes it. He pushes it hard. He's willing to stand up for it in the face of opposition. He's willing to challenge the other powers, the church that he's supposed to belong to. He says he belongs to. He does get kudos from certain church members. He still gets given Holy Communion, even by conservative bishops.
I guess I never really knew he was. I never even thought that he was a Catholic to begin with, or like.
Oh, yes. Canada has a long tradition of having Catholic leaders, Catholic in name only, who then bring our country to abortion, same-sex marriage, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, the guy who started it all was Trudeau's dad, Pierre Trudeau.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I just assumed he wouldn't. I don't know that he was more of the open atheist type or something.
No, not yet. He still was still, even a few years ago, calling himself Catholic, receiving Holy Communion publicly in the news, on the front of the newspapers, et cetera, et cetera.
Because at least for the United States, Biden just seems like he's kind of dim-witted. He doesn't seem like he even knows. Like he's just asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, in some ways that's true. Trudeau's more like Nancy Pelosi, but not quite. Nancy is her own game because she does more. I'm a Catholic and keeps talking about that. So
she does like to talk about her faith in really odd ways. Yikes! But yeah, no. So Trudeau is very much sort of out there, and he's definitely, he knows what he's doing, at least, right? And Biden doesn't really seem to know what he is doing. Do you think that's a front? Do you think he's pretending like he doesn't know what he's doing, or do you just think he actually knows what he's? Or
he is an old man, so he has the normal things you'd expect with an old man. Trump surprisingly doesn't have those because he's also an older man, but he doesn't experience a lot of the difficulties that Biden is right now. But Biden has, and a lot of people like to say when he's drugged up or something, but he has given coherent speeches even. So it's hard. If we watch a lot of Fox, you'll see Biden looks like a complete utter idiot. But I mean, and it's true. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for the United States because he has enough of these flubs that it's painful to watch. Very painful. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think he thinks he's still in control. The Hunter Biden laptop revelations should have revealed that he very much thinks he's still in control. At least of his fortune that he's made in this way. But very, it is difficult. It's difficult to watch. It's difficult for even for us in Canada to watch the American president being the way Biden is, because it's an embarrassment for you guys. We feel for you.
Yeah, did you see his being introduced by Fetterman?
Yeah.
Now that was something.
Yeah. All of these just being introduced by Fetterman. I remember some of that. I'm not sure what was the exact thing with Fetterman.
It was just some event. Fetterman was introducing Biden, and Fetterman's not coherent.
No,
so
yeah.
He was saying, I think he called Biden a highway one time or something like that. Like he's like, I'm next to a highway.
Oh boy.
I don't know if there was a highway nearby or something, but yeah, no, it's sad to see sort of the president sort of decay in his mental faculties, in front of everyone, because literally everyone is seeing that
it's
happen.
Too bad too, but also because there's a weird disconnect. I think a lot of the Democrats pretend it's not happening.
I don't even know how you can do that.
I don't know. So, but it's interesting. There's a different type of leadership that also gave into old age on the screen. It's actually before your time a little bit, I think. But John Paul II lived out his last quite a few years in the public eye, deteriorating. It's a very different thing because you can't really compare the papacy to the ruling of the United States, but it was something he did with such dignity. So there is a difference when you are publicly falling apart, acknowledging Christ and the suffering you're enduring, uniting it with Christ. That's a very different. It comes across different. I don't think many people on earth would have thought of John Paul II in his suffering, even when he was, drooling sometimes as he struggled to say the Mass. He couldn't stand anymore. He could only sit as he, tried to lift our Lord. People saw in that a heroic effort to live out his last days in the dignity of life and giving himself as an example of the, dignity that is in old and crippled and deteriorating life. So that was a hugely different thing. What you see with Biden is it was not quite the same, but it means similar in that the age is showing and everything else, but it's done with a pride, not with a humility, and it's done with his known disdain for life. And so it's a very opposite message, and there was a real courage in John Paul II to allow himself to show his weakness, to show the frail humanity. With Biden, it's that doesn't come across at all.
Was John Paul II's pontificate at all hindered by his was there any negatives to him being sort of aging like that in the public eye?
Some people would say so, and I think that's part of why Ratzinger, Cardinal Ratzinger, then later Pope Benedict, I think that might have influenced his retirement in some ways. Mm-hmm. He might have thought, "Oof, John Paul got too old. He was able to be run over by bad men in the Curia, and therefore, maybe I can't take this." No, those are only speculations. That's not in his memoirs. That's not, but you'd think that makes sense anyway. Difficult to know, but yeah.
And Benedict the 16th, I mean, he was Cardinal Ratzinger at the time. I think some people might think that sort of he was like kind of would could have stepped in and sort of taken care of that stuff. Like he never acted sort of as like John Paul II's stand-in for things, did he? Or I don't.
No, John Paul had different members of the Curia who were there, and part of the problem is, and it's a problem since the Second Vatican Council, they stopped basically disciplining clergy, even higher clergy. In fact, their process of disciplining often was kicking someone upstairs. So, in other words, when they're doing something bad, give them a higher position to move them out of the current one. But you're creating more problems. I remember, for instance, when Archbishop Fisichella, who was at the time head of the Pontifical Academy for Life, when he wrote in the Vatican newspaper scandalously that basically it was like he approved of the abortion of twins because the mother was a raped young girl. He put it in the pages of the Vatican newspaper, and it caused massive scandal because he condemned one of his brother bishops without even speaking to him, who was ministering to the family, and then excommunicated the abortionists who had were responsible for the abortion and anyone connected with it. And Fisichella condemned him in the pages of the Vatican newspaper. There was a big hue and cry, and for that, Fisichella was removed from his position as head of the Pontifical Academy for Life. But he was actually made the head of the new Pontifical Council for the New Evangelization. And then, yeah,
interesting strategy.
Yeah,
I have joked previously that I'm from the Chicagoland area, so I've joked that if only Supich would just get promoted, and I guess it's not really.
There's only one promotion now. We don't want that.
Well, no, just the Curia, just taken into the Curia,
yes.
And not in his in his see.
I was just thinking from the cardinalate. There's only one more step.
one title. Yes, there's only one title and that would be very bad.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not have that happen. So we talk about sort of conventional leaders. We've talked about Biden, Trudeau, and even the Pope. But as a Canadian, I'd love to understand sort of your view and sort of your relationship with the King, King Charles III. I've talked to a lot of British people about Charles III and the relationship with the King, and of course they have they have a closer relationship with the King because he lives in England. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, well, we in Canada, it's more like a figurehead now than anything else, which is in England too. We have our laws are basically made by Parliament, approved by the once they go through the houses, they're signed, but it's still officially given royal approval. We do that through the Office of the Governor General, acting in the name of the King, used to be the Queen forever and ever. So there's still that. It's like a formality, though. Okay. There's no real authority there. The only thing left to them is the same power that the King would have in England, and that would be to abdicate. If they strongly objected to something and didn't want to give it royal assent,
they can't withhold royal assent.
They can't, because it would force the issue, it would create a constitution or a crisis of their government, and it wouldn't work. But that's okay, because it would be a very strong statement. And that's what the King of Belgium wanted to do as well over abortion, when he didn't want to sign the law.
He lost all power because of it. And the Prince of Liechtenstein went to a what was it? It was a referendum in order to remove his powers because he blocked abortion bills. Though I think I'm afraid I've seen this. I don't know if it's true, but they've allowed gay marriage in Liechtenstein. I'm not really sure if that's true.
I think so. I can do a quick check, but there's 34 countries now that allow gay marriage. I know there's about 11 that still do civil unions. It's probably, I think it's 34 because Estonia just, they're doing it January 1st, 2024. But it's insane. I mean, Canada was one of the first countries. So
Did you guys do it by like parliament, or is there another
sort of, yes, we
process?
did first court order, then parliament.
Oh, okay. So courts
The
were
courts basically said you have to, and then parliament did it.
so courts have basically mandated both in Canada and in the United States gay marriage.
Yes.
It's so
Yeah.
interesting. The only place that hasn't done so most notable, I shouldn't say only. There's probably others that have, but the most notable I can think of is Ireland. Did a referendum,
Mhm.
and they voted in both.
Yeah, it's
both
funny.
Gay marriage and abortion.
Yeah, that is separated by a couple of years. But what happened was a lot of people were stunned that Ireland voted pro-abortion, and I thought, why? Wasn't that a foregone conclusion? It should have been.
They should have expected it.
Absolutely, but people were shocked. I didn't know how they'd be shocked. I guess they thought, oh, they went for gay marriage, but they're not going to go for abortion. That's one naivete.
Oh, they'd already gone for gay marriage at this point?
Yeah, they did gay marriage.
Yeah, I don't know why. If you go gay marriage, if anything, that's ironic because abortion has been around much longer than like gay marriage in other countries. So you'd think that abortion would be actually more cemented in the minds of Westerners.
Yeah, but it's not. So Ireland being very Catholic, the Catholics actually, the church made a bigger deal of abortion than they did same-sex marriage. So at the same time as they were behind pro-life campaigns, they really didn't get to talking at all about homosexuality. They refused to. And that was the debate. The debate was not marriage. So that's very interesting. If you want to talk cowardice, the greatest cowardice that we've seen in so long was what the bishops did vis-a-vis homosexuality. That lost them. I know, I'll tell you a little story. I was in 2004, the bishops of Ontario, my province in Canada, called together professionals in various fields. I was asked to come with my partner at Lifesite News, Steve Jelstovac. We founded it together. We were asked to come and talk on media. There's other media professionals there. There was medical professionals there, politicians there, and so on. They were to advise the bishops on what to do about same-sex marriage because it was going to pass. I spoke first. I told them this, of course, has nothing to do with marriage. We're on all the homosexual lists. They don't want marriage. Marriage is a monogamous union. They have no time for monogamy at all. The leaders among the activists told them that they need to have that designation for societal acceptance of, they didn't, basically, who we love is what they say, but what they mean is of the homosexual act. And I told them, so the principal argument that they're using to win this war is love is love. Why are you against love? Your God's all for love. I thought you said your God is love. Why are you against the love that I have for my same-sex partner? The only way to defeat that argument, to answer the argument, not defeat it, just answer it. So in the minds of the people out there, they can see there is an equal level of argument with love, because that's the argument, is to say, well, we love you enough to tell you that this thing is harmful for you. Show them the physical harm, show them the psychological harm, but also tell them, by the way, we're Catholics, so we believe in eternal life, and we want to see you in eternal life. And the only way to get there.
We also believe in eternal damnation.
Exactly. But they don't like to say that, even less so. At least they would say, we want you to be in eternal life. They refused. A doctor sitting next to me, who spoke next, said she totally concurred because she treated homosexual patients. And it was horrible what happened to them. I mean, it's just terrible. The human body is not meant for that. And it has massive terrible consequence. And yet, the bishops, they had in that year, I think, 90 public interventions to address the issue of same-sex marriage coming up. Not a single one reference homosexuality. They were all about the wonderfulness of man-woman marriage, which did absolutely this. They said, we agree. That's why we want it to. Thanks very much. That was it.
Well, yeah, of course it's it. If you don't actually push back, you're just gonna fall into their trap. Men and women obviously know the good of marriage, actual marriage. So they're just not gonna not care. You have to tell them why they should care about preventing so-called same-sex marriage. And why did they invite you though? Which is like, did they not know what you were gonna say? Like how?
No.
Like,
So at the time, this is a different time in the church. This is 2004. So it was a very different. It's a very different time for LifeSite too, because we were working with the Vatican at the time.
oh really?
And yeah, that might be hard to imagine, but yeah, we were.
It is for me. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah. In fact, we were working with them so closely, the Vatican called on us to help them celebrate under Pope Benedict, to help them celebrate an anniversary of a pro-life document. And we were I was one of 3 pro-life leaders who was actually asked to do the prayers at the bottom of Via della Conciliazione, which is the main road leading up to the Vatican. And they cordoned off the road, and they held prayers down at the bottom. Then we processed up, and then into the actual St. Peter's Square, where we held an evening vigil where we said more prayers and stuff. And they actually asked us to do that. And the next day, I met the Holy Father with a bunch of other pro-life leaders personally. Like,
what was that like?
Is very different. I met John Paul II in 1993, and it was overwhelmed. I mean, he was the Pope of my youth, my conversion, and so much. And he promoted the book that made everything in my life change, True Devotion to Mary. So that was moving for that reason. It was when I shook his hand. There was something else. He seemed very saintly to me, John Paul, that is. When I got to meet Francis, he was already 20. No, it was still 2013. But I already was aware of some of the oddities, let's just put it that way. And it was just very different. There wasn't any of the same thing. I can't attribute it to, I don't know what to make of that. I just knew it was a very different meeting, very, very different meeting. And it wasn't because I was older and I was whatever. There was something else that I don't know what to say about it, but it was different.
How did the relationship between LifeSite News fall apart with the Vatican, or what kind of, I guess, the current relationship?
We are still granted press credentials at the Vatican. We've had Rome reporters for many years, and we had just 2. We have 2 there now. I think one of them's going back to the States. But we are let in. We ask questions. We're very polite. We're Canadians after a while. Some of us are Canadian, but our actually Rome reporter right now is from England originally, and so it still works in that, but we are very much persona non grata in terms of we're there in an official role, we're not invited to do things with them anymore. And I almost got kicked out once because I went to report on the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. They were holding a meeting with population controllers. So when I went there, and Archbishop Marcelo Sorondo was all about to kick me out because basically we had reported truthfully that one of the speakers there was pro-abortion, and he didn't like to be called pro-abortion. He wanted to be called pro-choice, but we don't do that. So yeah, so they don't like us, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's just interesting the change, the sort of development over the course of the last couple decades.
Yeah, it happened for the whole pro-life movement. The whole pro-life movement whereas bishops were often against them because they were, whatever. They at least knew the Pope had their back.
Yeah.
Because John Paul was like 24/7 pro-life warrior guy. I mean, he would say so many pro-life things in one day. We find it hard to cover because you can't have 4 separate stories in the Pope in one day.
You can't?
Yeah, well, you could, but it's a bit,
People wouldn't read it as much, or just read one probably.
Yeah. So,
well, sort of coming back to like secular leaders too, just like is there any push in Canada for sort of I don't know, giving the king any more power or authority in Canada, and give, or at least the governor general, a little more influence than he does now? Or is Canada basically a republic but monarchy in name only?
yeah, basically the latter, because it's also a bit of a joke. Anybody who's old enough remembers Prince Charles and what he did with I don't even know if I should say the comments, but he made some very controversial, silly, sexual comments, and
Yeah.
we were on a phone and overheard, and it was insane all by itself. He shouldn't have been spied on anyway, but
That's a bit weird too.
It's
The whole situation is
crazy. The whole situation is always crazy, and then who knows what it means in the whole. It was a mess, but political leaders have often been messy. But Charles right now is.
He's not much better. Is that what you would you say he's not much better than a Trudeau, or would he?
No, he's not. He's
not much better.
No, he's not much better at all. They're actually both cut of the same cloth in terms of World Economic Forum adherence to globalism. They're both globalists in a big way. Charles being much older and just more clumsy has it more difficult. So he gets caught on hot mics saying odd, awkward, embarrassing things. So
where is courage in the Canadian political world coming from?
Well, it's hard. We speak of true courage, the courage to do right. That is really tough in the political world, because all those who hold true courage, or almost all those who hold true courage, will never get elected or don't get elected. So we do have some. Our one area in Canada where I live is probably the most conservative, other than Alberta. And that's one MP, one member of parliament, who gets elected over and over and over again. And she's pro-life and profoundly openly so, but almost nobody else. You almost can't be. So you've got to be ready to sacrifice it all if you're going to stay true. And so that's the reality in Canada anyway. We're a country where it is over 50% who are solidly pro-abortion, solidly pro-same-sex marriage. And so it's not like you can find another way for whatever. If you add up the current reigning Liberal Party, which is totally 100%, 100,000% pro-abortion and pro-homosexual, with the NDP party, which is similarly pro-abortion and pro-homosexual, with the Bloc, which is also pro-abortion, pro-homosexual, there's no way the Conservatives win. But the Conservatives also support abortion and same-sex marriage. So in terms of courage, you only have, at least if you're talking about true courage, you only have parties that are there, they put forward a platform, but they don't get elected. So it's a sad situation in terms of politics.
I know that Kennedy I mentioned yesterday the quiet revolution, and he said it was anything but a quiet revolution in Quebec, in French Canada. Is there any hope for French Catholic Canada, or French? Yeah.
Well, yes, I would say so. Wherever there is persecution, there is a remnant, and the remnant gets stronger as the persecution gets harder. And so you have very heroic men and women who live, and they're all basically all traditional. They're in the pro-life movement and they fight. I know one of them in particular, Georges Bouchemi, great friend of mine, hero in the movement there. He came to the pro-life movement, like 24 years ago or so, and was just a pretty rough guy, but there was a lot to him. And I remember telling him, you can do lots here. And now he is a fervent, traditional Catholic with everything that goes with. And anyway, it's real hero, really great guy. He was with us in Rome during the synods because we had a little coalition in Rome reporting on the synods and the family at the time when they were just crazy, 2014, 2015. And yeah, he's a great guy. And so it's a vast minority. They're tiny
Yeah.
groups, but very strong in the faith, kind of like you see in France.
So the similarities between
Yeah,
France.
I was just in France. I did the Chartres pilgrimage.
Oh, you did. How did it go?
It's incredible. 16,000 young people marching for 3 days, 70 miles in 3 days, and they're
Wow.
eating bread and water, and you sleep in tents. And it was brutal, but it was good. But it was really brutal.
Is it brutal yet fun? Or-
Yes, it is.
At least
When
camaraderie wise.
There is, because when you're young, almost everyone doing it is young, because you don't walk 70 miles on bread and water, or you can bring snacks or whatever, but you don't do that.
I don't have much experience walking.
Yes, exactly. But these guys were. It was at the end of it. Not many people were walking anymore. That was interesting.
Wait, what is that? What were they doing?
A lot collapsed.
Oh.
The 70 miles is, you're walking 30 some odd miles a day every day, and it was a challenge. You had to sit in the sun. That was the worst for me. Sitting in the sun, I would rather have walked, because you're sitting in the sun, you bake, and yeah, that was killer. And some of the masses were in the sun, because you can't fit into a church. So they have all traditional masses.
There are no trees.
Yeah, they used to have it in the forest. They don't anymore, because there's just too many people.
Oh,
And so
they've had to.
Yeah, it was pretty insane.
Okay.
And you had a lot of people collapsing in the sun. So anyway, but you know what? For all of that, it was really amazing. Blisters are everywhere. And a lot of people literally can't walk. They have to sort of hobble around for days afterward. So it was fun. It was good. It was really, really good, though. What for me was the best was just seeing traditions alive in France and all these young people.
Was it mostly French people too?
Yeah, there was 16,000 of them. There was at the final mass there was 22,000.
Cool.
So there's 16,000 in French. It's almost all French people. So we're marching with the French.
Oh, that's so cool.
In through their Vendée, with where
Oh,
de Montfort
right.
was and everything else. So
Okay. So you're marching. Where do you start? Where's the?
You start it used to be Notre Dame in Paris, but it got burned down. So we were there, but we started at Sacré-Cœur, which is another, the Sacred Heart, in Paris, and then walked to Chartres, to the Notre Dame in Chartres.
They are fixing it right as it
they
was.
They're
Right.
fixing it as it was traditionally.
Okay.
They're going to make it beautiful, and I think there's going to be it's going to be incredible. It was shut when we were there, but
It's amazing just because that's the French government and not even the Catholic Church. I bet no.
Oh, thank God! I think it would.
Yeah, it would have been worse if
it
it was the,
badly.
That's the scare. That's crazy.
We'll make it a beautiful. Oh, I have to tell you something really horrible. But do you know Frère André, Blessed André Bessette, Saint André Bessette? Now
I'm not familiar.
Okay, so he was in Montreal. He was a doorman in Montreal. Very, very holy guy, and he became a saint. Very poor guy. He joined the order there. Anyway, very miraculous. He had all sorts of miracles. But he raised the money to build one of the biggest oratory on earth in Montreal. And it's called l'Oratoire de Saint Joseph, the oratory, Saint Joseph Oratory. And it is totally massive. Downstairs was constructed while he was still alive. The crypt is the most beautiful thing you'll ever see. Upstairs was finished when he was dead, and they made it modernist.
Oh.
So it's huge. It's got superb acoustics.
Is anyone going to fix it? It's maybe
at some point they should. They
Yeah.
really need to, because it looks like the inside of this Paul VI Hall in the Vatican. Do you know the Paul VI Hall in the Vatican?
No, I'm.
Okay. Well, if anybody goes to look it up, you'll see what I mean.
Okay. Oh wait.
It's got those horrific cast iron things.
Doesn't it look demonic?
Yeah, a little bit.
What is
too.
it actually?
It comes some kind of art from like the 70s or something. It's just so
Yeah,
ugly.
that's weird.
And it's all like iron bars, and it's just sad. But it's modern architecture, and it does not compare to anything we had previously. That just looks gorgeous. If you go and look at the churches all over Rome, Paris, and or France, it's amazing. It's so beautiful.
That's beautiful. And also just hearing about the courage of, did you say 17,000?
16,000 French, and
16,000.
the rest from all over the world. We had a big group from the United States as well.
Talk about courage, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you're putting your faith on display. You're in a world that hates faith.
Yeah. Yeah, and we actually saw that there's so many people that you really didn't.
You don't feel like it was that courageous.
No.
Yeah.
In LA last week, that was cool. It was.
What was that again?
Sorry. LA last week was the Dodgers. So the LA Dodgers were giving an award to an anti-Catholic hate group.
Yeah.
Called the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, which they're not. And they do horrific things. So they're
drag.
Say,
I think, isn't that?
Yeah, that's the least of it.
Okay.
They're homosexual men who dress up as nuns, but then they do horrific things. They had 4 guys wearing crowns of thorns in white and exposing themselves. And no, it's really, really bad. They intentionally make mockery of, in the most lewd and crude way, of the faith of Christ, His Holy Mother. They do just unbelievable things. So, but they're awarded by Major League Baseball team. That's just unreal.
Yeah.
And so the LA Dodgers are an anti-Christian team. They will be until they publicly apologize for this atrocity.
Especially so sad with the name, with the city, the city of the angels.
I know.
And Bishop Strickland was there, right? Was that
Bishop Strickland was there, a great man of courage. I know he was probably cajoled by his brother bishops, where he just left the conference of bishops the day before.
Oh wow!
To not go.
Oh wow!
He would have been told not to go. He, of course, we can't confirm that with him or anyone else, but
sure.
Pretty painfly obvious. He's going to another diocese where that bishop is not marching, is not processing, where it was sad, but it was an incredible thing to be behind Bishop Strickland. What a joy, and the power. He prayed exorcism prayers, and to me that was actually the most impressive part.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, John Henry, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for coming on Plotlines. Is there anything before we go do you want to say?
Yes. All of you should practice true devotion to Mary, St. Louis de Montfort. I know you probably do already, but for all your listeners, I'll tell you one thing. Exorcists would ask sometimes demons, what books are the most troublesome to you, or do you hate the worst? Number 1 is the scriptures. Number 2 was St. Louis de Montfort's True Devotion to Mary.
Wow.
Number 3 was, if anybody's interested, Thomas à Kempis, Imitation of Christ.
Okay.
So
that one's both. What was the first one? Sorry.
True Devotion to Mary.
Okay, and the second one, sorry.
The very first the demon said was the scriptures.
Oh, the scriptures. Sorry.
And then,
yes.
And then after that was True Devotion. And after that was Imitation of Christ.
I mean, all are popular, of course, but as devotional material, those Thomas à Kempis and True Devotion are very popular. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you all for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And God bless. Bye.